What's up, everyone? Welcome back to 614 Headsets. We're your three hosts from the 614 area, Columbus, Ohio. Ryan, say what's up.
What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us again. We're excited for this one, especially we're back-to-back Texas coaches. This one's going to be great.
Donovan.
What's up, everyone? Happy Wednesday night. Technically Thursday listening to this. Glad you're joining us for episode 7.
Yeah, and myself, Kyle Stout. Hey, Tom Brady said it best. Football is unconditional love, and we couldn't agree more. This game's a lifestyle, and we consider our show a movement at lifestyle. We have to be absolutely obsessed with this game. We all had practice today. We're all on here hopping on the late night, talking our favorite game and everything. So that's absolutely what this show and what we're about. Donovan, talk to us about what episode 7, the Play Callers Club, is going to be all about.
We are going to talk with Coach Dan Casey, of course. We'll get into a little bit about him and his background here soon. Ask him some interesting and tough questions in our Pick 6 segment. We're going to go through some of our favorite moments of all time, college football or NFL. I got a little blend of both. And then we're going to do a deep dive into the Play Callers Club and look at some offensive concepts specifically with Coach Casey. So really excited for today's episode.
Let's do it, man. Before we get started, this show is brought to you by Fundraising University. Fundraising University Ohio offers a variety of fundraising efforts that helps football teams run profitable, effective, and fast-paced fundraisers designed to raise the most money in the shortest amount of time to reach their fundraising goals. Fundraising University Ohio is locally owned, operated, and with their 6-step blitz system will help your team maximize profits. As the current coach himself, Brent Maxwell, with Fundraising University, will sit down and help you pick, plan, strategize, and execute your fundraiser that will allow you as a coach to focus on your practice time, prep time, player development, and personal time. Fundraising University Ohio offers 60-minute donation platforms where you'll guaranteed to have your money back in 8 days. The digital and hard discount cards and Fundraising University put all the work in for you. If you're interested in us running a fundraiser for you, please contact Brent Maxwell at bmaxwell@fundraisingu.net or 740-501-8946 to learn how to get started with fundraising. Brent's still looking for teams this summer. I know he was talking to some around us. He just got done doing a big fundraiser for Zanesville High School as well. And thanks to Brent, our show just got some massive upgrades that we're excited about to go mobile as well. So if you want to be the best, hook up with the best, reach out to Brent. Without further ado, Donovan, let's introduce the world to almost a man who needs no introduction.
Coach Dan Casey, we appreciate you being on this show. We really do. You got a huge presence in the coaching community on social media, on Twitter, and obviously you got all the swag and everything we see in the background. You jumped on and we're like, that is a clean setup. I'm still working on mine in the background, but
way cleaner than yours.
Yeah, really appreciate you coming on with us. Give us your background, how you got into coaching, where you're from, where you're at now. Just walk us through your career and how you got to this point.
For sure, man. I appreciate you guys coming on. I got a soft spot in my heart for Ohio guys. I played with a bunch of Ohio guys at Davidson College where I came up, and some of my favorite teammates were from Ohio, Columbus area, Cincinnati, different places like that. We actually played conference game when I was at Davidson, Pioneer Football League at Dayton University. So I've made some trips up to Ohio in my day, but it's been a minute. But I appreciate you guys having me on. And yeah, so I'll give you the real quick SparkNotes version of how I got into coaching. Like I said, played at Davidson College. Was a high school quarterback, and as soon as I set foot on campus, I realized I had a candy arm, and that wasn't going to work out for me at quarterback. So switched over to defense. Got to play a lot on a team that really struggled. So this is when I was coming up in playing. It was really like the 2010 to 2014 era. So if you can put yourself in a time machine, that's like the tail end of Chip Kelly at Oregon. That's the Bryles system at Baylor. It's just people like running no huddle, snapping the ball 100 times a game. And I'm playing DB against these offenses in our conference that are basically trying to copycat all of these offenses that are playing these blur paces. So I've got my tongue hanging out every game, just dog tired, miserable. And I promised myself as soon as I finished playing that I would never be on the defensive side of the ball again. It was just a terrible experience. So no, in all seriousness, I loved my time playing defense, and it gave me a great perspective. But when I got to coaching, I think I really had a desire to be back on the offensive side of the ball. I ended up making the decision to go to graduate school. I went to seminary at Duke University. Thought I might become a pastor, and within about 2 weeks of being on campus, I just missed football like crazy. I needed to be back on the field. So I just started cold calling and emailing every coach in the Durham, North Carolina area and just saying, hey, I'll do anything. I'll paint the fields. I'll just come volunteer. You don't have to pay me anything. I'll do anything. And as we all know, as coaches, we get busy. We aren't always good at checking our email. I got ghosted, like no responses from a single coach in the Durham area. I got froze out that first year but was really still just trying to find a way to get involved. And so the following year I got hired by a private school in Raleigh, North Carolina, which is neighbors to Durham. And they hired me. And when I showed up, they told me, oh, we actually play 8-man football. And I was like, whoa, I know nothing about 8-man football. So that first year was a huge learning experience for me. I was just helping out, doing anything I could. I was 23 years old. Year 2 comes and they decided to part ways with the head coach and asked to interview me to be a head coach. And so I'm thinking, whoa, I'm way out of my depth here. Even with 8-man football, like trying to jump in and be a head coach seemed a huge step. I ended up interviewing, getting the job, and took over as head coach at 24 years old. Just a young pup trying to figure things out, trying to still learn 8-man football. We had a great run there at St. David's, sent some kids to go play college football from 8-man, which was awesome. In fact, one of my kids is still playing at Campbell University, an FCS school in Bowie's Creek, North Carolina, and scored his first touchdown last year, which was a huge deal. Not many 8-man guys get to make the jump like that, but it was a great experience. I was a head coach and offensive coordinator there for 5 years. And it was honestly like the greatest learning experience I could have imagined. I had to do everything from scratch. There was no plug and play. There was no, hey, I'm going to rip Chad Morris's playbook from Clemson off the internet and install it with my guys. It was all like from the ground up, trying to learn the game. And I think I learned a lot of foundational football there. The only problem was I was the only coach on campus. So I had some off-campus coaches that would come in and parachute in for practice, but I just needed some people to talk football with. I couldn't go down to the history teacher and get on the board and diagram things or anything like that. And so that's really where Twitter started for me. It was a way for me to interact with coaches as much as I could and ask questions and post the things I like and demonstrate really publicly how stupid I was about football. And football coaches are real quick to correct you too. So if you ever make a mistake, they're gonna set you straight. It was great, man. And I had the opportunity to come down here to coach in Texas with Episcopal High School. Coach Steve Lease is a legend down here. He's been the head coach of Adidas All-American games and Under Armour All-American games. He's sent guys to the NFL. He's awesome. And he gave me a chance to run the offense down here. And it was time. I think I was ready to get on to the next challenge. And I've really enjoyed my time down here in Texas so far. So that's the Spark Notes version.
As we talk about some of those things, there's 2 things I want to jump into. One, give me a year. Like, when did you start this, what you're doing social media wise, which is probably how almost everybody knows you. Roundabout, when did that start?
So it probably would have been the fall of 2016.
Okay.
Is when I got started.
And at what point did it, so 2016, what point did it start to become this, I don't know, business or however you want to coin it, the CoachDanCasey.com, everything you've got going on. What was the aha moment, or when did it transition into that?
When I first got started, it was really just a labor of love, like loved researching football and putting stuff out there, still do to this day. And really it was a way for me to connect with college coaches and get my kids recruited. And that was the genesis of it. But then I realized that there was a huge need in the coaching community for really high quality curated content. There's so much out there, but trying to wade through the amount of information that's on the internet to stuff that can actually help you is actually pretty difficult to do. I know that firsthand from scouring the internet for everything in existence. And I always kind of took it from the approach of, when I was a young coach, what did I want? What did I need? And that was where it started. And it really didn't start off as a business. What it started off as was just helping people. When I started a family a few years back, I realized just how valuable my time was. And I had just been giving quite a bit of my time for free. And I still do that for sure, without a doubt. But I wanted to find a way to make it feel right for my wife and my family, for me to be spending so much time doing something. Because it was literally, I would teach during the day, but pretty much sun up to sundown, I was working on stuff. And so I really needed it to make sense for me to continue doing that. And so really I was at a crossroads of, do I go coach in college, or do I stay at the high school level and explore some entrepreneurial itches that I have? And with starting a family and having 2 young kids, I figured that was kind of the route I wanted to take at this point.
I love it because you naturally already touched on something I was going to ask you later. So I have one kid, our second kid's on the way. I'm
There
a
you go.
teacher, I'm a coach. We've started this. What's one piece of advice you could give us about balancing all that? Because I know you have two kids as well, correct?
No doubt.
How do
No
you
doubt.
give me some advice? How do you balance it all, or what would you tell somebody?
It's a great question. And I've thought a lot about this. In fact, with our podcast, the Coaches Collective, we've talked with a bunch of coaches, and that's like a question. That's like our big question we ask at the end of every episode with all these high profile guys is like, how do you balance everything? How are you a good dad and a good coach? Because those are hard things to be. They both take a lot of time and attention and energy. And I think what I've found personally is, and I don't know, I know everyone's on different places with this, but I don't necessarily believe in time management. I believe in energy management. Certain things are going to take a lot of time, but I always try to reserve my best energy for my kids and for like when we're on the practice field. So I try to bring my best self in those moments because I know with all we have going on, it's really easy to spend our energy in all these different places. And so I always try to like keep myself as fresh as possible for interacting with my kids and for interacting with the guys that I coach on the field. And obviously my wife is 100% in the mix with that as well. And I kind of group family all together, but just really giving your best energy to the things that matter most to you. Because sometimes during the season, it is long hours and we can't give the amount of time that we want to give to certain things, but we can give the energy. And that's been a big thing for me. I know it sounds really simple. The first thing I try to do when I walk in the door from football practice is like literally get on the floor and play with my kids, change the level of my physical body and get on the floor, build Legos, do different things like that, and just let them know that I'm locked into their world. And I think I try to do the same thing on the field of just not trying to come out to the field with my players as I'm in charge and you guys are playing for me, but trying to get on their level and letting them know that it's a team effort and I want us to be co-working for our goals.
I love that.
Oh, that's perfect. Coach, I love that you said that you jumped right in at 24. Who came to you and asked you to be a head coach? Because right now I'm 27. I'm a head coach. I got there. I was 24. I've been here for 3 years now. So it's the same thing. I love it because I jumped right into it and had no clue what I was doing.
None. No, man.
But I think those are the best situations because I was
100%.
the same at 23, 24. I became a head coach, and ultimately, it definitely wasn't the success I would have wanted for myself. But because Donovan asked me this, Donovan goes, how do you know what you know today about receivers and routes and different things like that coming from an offensive line background? And I told him, you have to throw yourself to the fire. You are going to fail. You are going to do good things. But when you look back through it, I can't say I'm the same coach now if I didn't throw myself into that fire. And I don't even mean to jump into that, but I think that's a great point for people who are maybe on the fence about doing something. Whatever that opportunity is, you got to look at in the end game where you're going to be as a coach down the road.
No doubt. It's the greatest thing that could have happened to me because it forced me to clarify a lot of my values as a coach, like really early on. And I think the biggest thing that stands out to me in finding success in those early years is really humility because like you said, you know nothing. And so you have to be really open to new ideas. You have to be, I can't tell you how many times like I actually told my team I was sorry for certain things those first few years. Cause I'm like, man, I screwed that up. And we ended up in one of those years, we ended up losing a state championship game to a team we had beat by 20 something earlier in the year. And it was literally, I cost the team the game because I didn't fix a problem that was going on in the field with our scheme that was easily fixable, but I just didn't know. I didn't know any better. And so there are things that you can look back and you can cringe and you can be like, man, like I could have had a state championship. Those kids could have had a state championship and we didn't get it done. Or you can say, hey, I'm going to learn from that experience and I'm going to keep marching forward. And I think that it all comes back to having that growth mindset. And I think in order to have a growth mindset, you have to be willing to be your harshest critic, but not in a way that's self-defeating, but in a way that's, hey, I'm going to every offseason, I'm going to continue to master this craft and get better and better. And usually you can only pick one or two things to work on in the offseason, but you are going to, if you like truly commit to those things, you're going to be better year over year. And the compound interest, man, it gains steam over time when you're learning every year.
And I think players respond to that. I think today's players, more so than ever, respond better relationship-wise if you admit to your mistakes and you own it in front of the group as a man. And not only does it help your team, but it helps them as future men being able to see that example and model, hey, I made a mistake and I owned it and I'm going to get better for it. I want you guys to know. And this generation doesn't do with the it's my way or the highway.
No.
That's how it has to be. I think you're going to do leaps and bounds better when you have that type of approach. And that's great, man.
No,
And
100%.
that's
And
what it has
Go
to be relationships first with the kids
100%.
nowadays. It's not, you cannot go in there and just do your own program and run your own stuff.
Got to get them to trust you.
Hey, let's
Absolutely.
get into the most famous segment that has become a crowd favorite, the Pick Six segment. Donovan, explain it and let's get going.
Pick Six segment, Coach. This started a couple weeks ago, 3-4 weeks ago, maybe. We're gonna throw you 6 random questions. You didn't see these before, right? They range from a lot of different topics. Rapid fire. You give us your gut feeling on each of these. All right, you ready?
Let's do it.
First one from me. What's the best sports movie of all time?
Oof.
And
Man.
why is it Space Jam? 1.
Hey, you got a point there for sure. Best sports movie of all time. I'm a sucker for Field of Dreams. Field of
Okay.
Dreams is a good one.
Ooh,
Little
I
Kevin
was not
Costner.
expecting that one.
I would not have either.
If you build
Yeah.
it, they will come, man. It's all about vision,
But I definitely say that all the time.
right?
Have you-
I would have never guessed.
Time out. Hey, just so you know, Coach, there's some youngins on this podcast. Ryan,
know
have
you-
you ever watched Field of Dreams?
Obviously.
That's such a lie. I can
Why?
tell right now you have never watched it.
You sound crazy.
Next question. Look, by your response, I know right now
You're mad because you're old, dude.
You're
I-
gonna text me tomorrow and you're gonna be like, I've never watched it.
I can admit I've never seen it.
It's worth a
literally
watch.
watched
Worth a watch.
All right,
good
next question I got. If you won the lottery, and I'm talking like the $1 billion like Powerball that like
100%,
builds up
yeah.
for months and months, what's the first thing you buy?
A ranch in Texas.
Love it.
Ooh.
Love it.
Perfect.
We talking cattle ranch, Coach?
Hey, it doesn't matter. Just some
Just
land.
All right.
Is out there.
All right, Sayers, you're up.
All right, now mine are always the best questions, just so you know, Coach. Here we go. Who is the best superhero of all time?
Iron Man.
I like that one.
He's human.
That's solid.
He's relatable.
Time out. Coach White is the biggest superhero fan in the world. Coach, how would you
Massive.
respond to this?
That is a great choice. Iron Man's a great choice. I'd say
I don't think he agrees, though.
No,
if you look like recently Robert Downey Jr., oh yeah, I can rock with that. Mine personally, probably Iron Man or Captain America, but only
sure,
because of those two actors doing it.
see, my
Obviously.
son would kill me if I didn't pick Iron Man. He's an Iron Man fanatic. So I got to go with my guy.
There we go. Captain America is definitely mine. That's number one.
Fair
for me.
enough.
It
Yeah.
has to be. And my son has a little Captain America too. I make him
There
love
you go.
Captain America. Would you rather, Coach, know when you're dying or how you're dying?
What is it? Warren Buffett said, I want to know, I want to know where I'm going to die and avoid that place at all costs or something like that.
So you're gonna say
Um,
when then or
I would
how?
I'd say when. I want to know how much time I got and make the most of it.
There we go.
That's a good way. I think I would go that too. That's so morbid.
Hey,
It's been the most morbid one
Sorry.
we've ever
Sorry
had.
here's
about
the
lottery
crazy thing is just like at
superheroes and-
summer
Yeah.
school, we were talking to the kids about that.
I love it, man. It's you know what? The inspiration behind these questions is crazy. I can't tell you how many times lately now my wife and I are just hanging out and talking over the show and what's going on. And I've involved her in some of these questions
There you
too.
go.
And she talks about it and answers them, or we've talked and it spurred into a question. Coach, what is your biggest pet peeve? What's one of your biggest pet peeves?
Biggest pet peeve is when you throw the first slant on double slant. You never throw the first slant on double slant.
Okay. All right. I'd agree with you that it always gets rocked.
It's either
It's a
someone's going to
tight
get hurt or
window.
someone's going to get picked off.
I'm with you. I want
That's
to.
fresh on my mind. We were just doing it.
All
so.
right, it's a football. He went football. I'm gonna go non-football. Wet socks. I am
There
a
you go.
stickler
Okay,
for wet
if we're going
socks.
non-football,
Okay.
I'll play this game if we're going non-football. Let's see. I would say this doesn't happen very often, but I've had it happen. When people set out, and this mostly happens in other countries, when people set out an ashtray next to the pepper and they look similar, and you go for ashtray on whatever you're eating, and it is not a great experience. It's one of the worst experiences I've ever had.
Did you see the way he slid that in there? This man's cultured. He goes, when you travel the world, look at him. Boys,
Yes,
what are
it's
your
rough.
pet peeves? I want to hear them.
People who ride their bikes. I almost said in the middle of the street, but I'll be honest, anywhere on the street. I don't
Fair. Yeah.
I go on the sidewalk. I know it's against the rules. Go on the sidewalk. Don't block the cars. If you're doing that for a race or charity, I get it. If you're doing it just to work out, pick a different way to work out, especially not when I'm driving to work. Go for a run in your neighborhood.
You don't like cyclists.
Yeah, don't disrupt the flow of traffic just so you can get your special little exercise. Go on a treadmill, go to the gym. Like,
You're such an angry person.
Dude, that I cannot tell you. I'll be driving to work and there's someone in the middle of the 2-lane road riding their bike. I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
It's rough.
Sayers, come on.
My biggest pet peeve is absolutely when one of my coaches or my players ask me if we have practice, when we have practice or anything, when I have the band app that literally you click on it and it gives you the schedule. It gives you a post from me every day. If you're just too lazy to follow that.
Time out. Did you just plug Band A sponsor on the show? What are you? There ain't no free shout outs for Band. Come on now, baby. There ain't no free shout outs on here.
Hey, we better call them because
call Band because there ain't no free shout outs. Some of us use Band on our staff.
3 times, so you're shouting it out a lot.
Nope.
It's a great app.
All right, Coach. My wife and I balanced back and forth on this last question. I nixed her. What's your theory on Bigfoot? Is he real or not real? I'm going to tell you, as a kid,
this is phenomenal.
Bigfoot fascinated me. I used to always think Bigfoot was real or we could find him. What do you think, Coach?
I think perception is reality. If you want Bigfoot to be true, I think he can be true to you.
Like Santa Claus.
Sure. I'm not going to tell someone Santa Claus doesn't exist.
He's saying
it's on them to work
not
through.
Real, Coach. Just stand behind it. You said not real. Okay. All right. I got it. We're cool. Now, I'm going to add a special 7th question. This is my wife's. We balance this back and forth. I guess this is a big Texas debate.
So after the pick 6, you got a field goal then. That's cool.
Correct. Yeah. If you had to pick, Whataburger or In-N-Out?
Oh, Whataburger. Without a doubt.
Right. I guess this is a big Texas debate. We don't have.
You got In-N-Out is a one-trick pony. Whataburger, you can get whatever you want whenever you want. You can get breakfast.
Okay. See,
it's a no-brainer.
I'm gonna earn some points with the lady. All right, I love it, man. That was great. We had an extra one. I love it. Bigfoot's real.
Love that. All right, let's get into the first official topic for Sayers All Gas Awards. All right, Ryan, kick it off.
This is obviously my favorite part of the show right here. So, Coach, as you know, the saying all gas, no brakes, that's my favorite saying in the world. So we have this segment. What we're going to ask you today is, what is your favorite moment from watching an NFL or college football game? Or you could say one for each like Donnie Mac's going to do.
Had to do it.
So am I up first?
Yeah, Coach. Yeah, you're the star of the show. Let's go.
Like,
all right.
In my house, you would eat first too.
There you go. Can't beat it. So when I was a kid, I grew up in Central Pennsylvania and grew up a Penn State football fan. I'm sorry, Columbus, but I'll never forget going to. There you go.
That's where Stout played.
So there you go. I was wondering if I was like, is that a Penn State or a Wake jersey? I was trying to figure that out. It's similar. Anyway, so I was in probably elementary school and I went to a whiteout night game against Nebraska. It's the year Larry Johnson rushed for 2,000 yards. It was like the stadium was shaking. It was insane. And I think like we can all point to these moments when we fell in love with football, and that was like, this is the only thing I want to do the rest of my life. It was like, it was electric.
So you were there.
I was there. I
Yeah.
think my dad scalped tickets off some random Nebraska fan, and we slid in there. We were surrounded by the Big Red, but we were just going buck wild. It was awesome.
That's a really cool perspective because none of us went with a game we went to. I like that.
There you go. Okay.
And that is a wild environment. So
It was wild.
that's cool to me.
It's wild.
I'll go next, man.
Yeah,
And
show your age in this one, Coach.
you stole. I literally.
This is brutal. I had to look this up.
Oh, come
30
on.
minutes
I was like, damn.
30 minutes ago, I'm laying in bed with my wife. I'm finishing this, and I said, I'm really showing my age here, babe. I went with the 2003 Fiesta Bowl of Ohio State versus Miami. Now, they have no idea about this, all right? But there was so much hype surrounding that game, and there was so much talent in that game, all right? I'm going to spit this at you guys, right? So, obviously, for those that don't know, Ohio State won in double overtime. Of the 43 starters, I think you add in the special teams or special packages, 37 went on to be drafted in the following NFL drafts. You name it, right? Who was in there? You had AJ Hawk, Carpenter, you had Winslow, you had all the guys on Miami.
Sean Taylor, Frank Gore.
Sean Taylor. Who's the running back? Willis McGahee.
Frank Gore's on that team too, wasn't he?
Yes.
Yeah, but he was
that was
young.
a two-headed horse. He was young. So it's crazy the amount of talent was in the game. And it was such a storybook game where it was back and forth and you go into two overtimes. And I'm not going to lie, today during lunch, I hopped on YouTube and I pulled up some highlights and watched it again. But what stood out, I couldn't remember. I was younger. I was probably a freshman or sophomore in high school. Stop it.
I was 5 years old.
Stop it.
I was 7.
I forgot how many turnovers there was in that game.
Yeah.
I forgot how tight of a game it was because it was tight all the way up until overtime. But I forgot how many turnovers there was. And to me, I just remember being I take it back to where I was sitting in, my family had a big party for it. All my dad's friends were there. A young kid, it goes to that double overtime. Willis McGahee got hurt, if I remember right, his ACL and everything. If you could write a movie script, it could be that game. And that's the game that stands out to me.
PI or no PI?
Oh, it was PI.
On the pass interference?
Yeah. Ooh.
PI for sure. In today's game, PI. I think it was a PI. What do you think, Coach? It was close.
It was close. It was a late flag. Definitely a late flag.
I think
my dad was at that game, and he said that before that flag came out, there was so much time in between that the fireworks went off for the color of Miami. A banner went up on the TV, said, "Congratulations, Miami Hurricanes, your 2003 national champions."
That's hilarious.
And then flag comes out.
Wow.
For me, I had to go one of each, and partially because Sayers and I are on the same page with college. But college, I won't get too far into it, but I'm a huge Buckeye fan. Has to be 2014 when they beat Alabama. Huge underdogs, third string quarterback. I was a huge Buckeye fan before that, was really into him. But that game just drove off what seemed to be this kind of Ohio State program now and was a huge leaping point for them. So wild game. But NFL-wise, this is what drove my fandom as a Washington Redskins fan. Was 2012, RG3's rookie year. They're on this hot streak. They're fighting for the division. They play the Dallas Cowboys Thanksgiving Day 2012. RG3 lights them up for 5 touchdowns, no picks. I think he has more touchdowns than he has incomplete passes, like 350 yards passing. And that was right around the time where I really started I always watched Redskins games with my dad and everything, and I watched them lose to the Patriots for years and the Cowboys for years on years. But that game cemented my love for the Redskins and my hatred for the Cowboys. And that's what springboarded. And then, of course, the season and all that happened and didn't go too well for RG3 and the rest of the team in the end, but it was still a great game.
Can we pause right there for a second? I want to hear Coach's take on this. If you go back to that year, do you remember how hot the Pistol offense was in those couple years surrounding that?
Oh, yeah.
Coach, you've watched a lot of film. Why was it such a flash pan success?
I think I don't know this for sure, but I do think that the pistol, the timing of it is just a little tougher in the NFL. That's my personal opinion. I think getting under center or running from the gun makes a little bit more sense. And I think no one adapts faster than NFL defenses. So even when you go back and
Right.
look at like when the Wildcat took off, it was like it lasted half a season and then everybody squashed it. So I think people just figure it out. They copycat on offense, but they copycat even more on defense. And
Yeah.
I think the timing of the pistol, and they didn't run RG3 as much after that year. So took one of the threats away. I think that was a piece.
Because around that same time, you had Kaepernick too, right? It was in that
Yeah.
same
Mhm.
area of time. It was like the
For sure.
pistol lit up the NFL, and it was like what you said. It almost felt like defensive coordinator slammed the door shut and said, "We ain't leaving
Yeah.
until we figure this out."
I think that was a big piece.
So I don't mean to interrupt, but it just made me think about that.
For me, it has to be the 2014 Buckeyes game, no doubt. I was in college that year. That was like my first year in Columbus, and we were on campus. It was great. And in high school, when I was a junior, Billy Price was a senior. And so obviously seeing him do his thing that night was great. And he had that lead block at the end of the game. They busted Zeke out, which was obviously great to see for him. And then just like we had a player, Perez Bryant, he was on our team, and he went to Glenville. So he graduated with Cardell. And so I would see Cardell Jones too. And he never was playing. And then I don't know where he goes and wins the national championship, which was
crazy.
just like unbelievable that I was like right next to the dude, but then he wasn't a starter. He was a third string guy. He was kind of just kicking there, just doing whatever. And then I don't know where he goes and wins the national championship, goes to the NFL. So that's great for him. But that night was a blast. I don't really remember it too vividly. I had to watch some highlights for that. But it was great. And then since Donnie added an NFL one, the NFL one I'm going to add is win goal this year.
Jesus.
Oh, man, you keep plugging that. I love it. But that's what showed my age. I'm laying in bed. I told my wife, I'm like, both these dudes put the 2014 game and I put the 2003 game.
You were probably sleeping on the 2014 game by then.
Stop. I watched the whole thing.
No, you didn't.
I actually stole my neighbor's.
So fun fact about that Sugar Bowl. I was not a very good college football player, but I was a nice enough guy that I got on the All-State Good Works team. And I was actually there in New Orleans for that game. It was wild.
Oh, okay.
Jeez.
Good for you.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what.
Crazy?
It was nuts.
Nobody Ohio State fan. Surprisingly more Ohio State fans there than you would have thought.
It was rocking. I was impressed.
I tell you what, I would not have made the All-State Good Works team because following that game, the morning I came out, I had one of those apartments where everybody was in the same area, and you walked out, and then there was your like mailbox boxes. I stole somebody's paper that day. I would not have made the All-State Good team. I'm sorry. I apologize. You ever figure it out? I owe you like $2. My bad.
All right. Awesome. Stout, thank you for showing us your age and us with the new age college football memories. Let's get into the second topic and the final topic for this evening.
Man, so like I said, if you're a follower of this show, I would say 90% of you already know who this guy is. And I just want to thank Coach for coming on. Coach Dan Casey, CoachDanCasey.com. He's got his Play Callers Club. He's got his One Play a Day. He's got his ultimate guides. And Coach, I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done, like you said, to help grow and educate our game. I think it's fantastic. I think this is the time to be alive as a coach and utilizing social media and talking with other coaches and seeing what people are putting out. It's fantastic. But you've just come off your fourth installment of the Ultimate Guides, right? And you just did your empty offensive football. And we just want to dive into that. And I guess the rest of the show is going to be wherever we take it, but definitely diving into empty. And to lead it off.
No, but listen, he has to chill. I call the defense, Coach. Mm-hmm. Listen, you're doing a lot because I see a lot of empty in the city. You got to stop because I don't know if they're getting it from you or whatever. If they're probably getting nuggets from you for sure. I call the defense. I hate the empty. Empty's
Hey, we'll get more defensive guys on here when you step it up and you bring some more guests on the show. You could help us out. Get somebody on.
man.
Ouch.
So
Sorry, I'm the head coach. You're just the offensive coordinator. I also have a kid just like you, one kid just like you. You don't work summer school. All right, go ahead though. Sorry, thank you.
You should have signed that contract for week 3. That's all I'm going to say.
All
All right, Coach, what'd you discover or learn from this latest deep dive and Ultimate Guide?
Man, a little bit of background on the Ultimate Guides. One of the things that I've come across in the football coaching world is a lot of people will package together a system, which is really valuable. I actually played for Matt Mumme at Davidson, who's Hal Mumme's son. We ran like true blue air raid, learned a lot from that experience. Played for Mike LaFleur, who's now the OC for the Rams, and he ran kind of West Coast pro style stuff, learned a lot from that, playing defense against that system. And I love systems. I also recognize that a lot of coaches, especially in high school, don't have the luxury of plug and playing a particular system. They're really having to tailor what they do to the personnel. But again, some of the bigger schools can get away with it. Some of the smaller schools can't. But I think I resisted this urge to label myself as, oh, I'm an air raid guy. Oh, I'm a spread option guy. I'm a this, that, or the other. I'm an offensive guy. And I think I have a healthy respect for a lot of different types of offenses and how they can be successful in the game. And so all of my study begins and ends in the option world and trying to figure out if an option team is doing something, it's probably sound football and can be applied to other areas of football. So I start there and move out from that place. But in studying so much football, I realized that there was a need in the coaching world to be able to apply a particular concept to a variety of offenses. I thought the best way to start was with the counter play because it really has a home in any offense. No matter what system you're running, you should run counter. It's just a phenomenal play. And so I really just, through all my study, tried to pull together kind of a curated group of concepts that you could apply to your offense. I'm not trying to tell you what to run on offense. I'm just giving you an idea of how different people do different things. And so the counter book, I think people really appreciated just being able to pull those nuggets into their offense. The next book was a screen book. And I know screens aren't nearly as sexy as counter and mesh or anything like that, but I think a deep understanding of the screen game can just allow you to access all this hidden yardage all over the field. And so even though it's probably not the first thing you think of for an Ultimate Guide, but it could open some things up for coaches. And so the next one was I was really trying to get into the pass game and the protection world. And that was when I dove into mesh. That was the latest project. And then with this most recent one with Empty, I think what I realized is depending what offensive system you run, Empty is like a shortcut to get the ball to your best player. That's really, at the end of the day, that's what it is. You can do it through quick game. You can do it through QB run game. You can do it through jet sweeps, rocket toss, all these different things. There's so many different applications out of Empty, but it really spreads the defense out, allows you to get a good look at what they're doing, simplifies the defensive game plan because, as we know, usually you're carrying a limited menu versus Empty. And so you tend to get a beat on what the defense is trying to do. They may zero blitz you. They may drop 8. They may play their base. They may roll coverage. You'll get an idea and then you can start to work off of that. So that was ultimately what it came down to. It's not the ultimate guide to pro style empty pass game. It's really the ultimate guide to how do you get your best player the ball as quickly as possible and let him go make plays.
And I'll say I had the screen book and I loved it. I agree with you that I think anybody that got an ultimate guide will find a nugget that helps them.
For
Whether
sure.
it is,
That's the goal.
you might find something that is completely like, hey, we are not there. That doesn't fit our personnel or whatever. I think the cool thing about the ultimate guides is the fact that there are so many nuggets in there. You're going to find something that's going to fit your team or fit your personnel or your playmakers, or it's going to open your idea where, hey, that kind of works, but I could tweak this a little bit. And there's a huge variety in there. You brought up a really great segment for me. This is what I want to get to. So we run Empty, and I've seen a change here a lot in Columbus over the years where it used to be when we would go Empty, or the flavor, I should say, teams would play very vanilla, very too high, very soft coverage, keep it in front of you, whatever. And the thought process has changed now. And now teams are
100%.
going to try to +1 you in the box, overload it,
Yep.
and blitz it and try to get the ball out quick.
Yep.
From your study or your time, this is selfish.
Go for it. Let's go.
What's an answer? What did you find as a good answer to that?
So I think the best
out. That's what I do. I'm coming. We're
Yeah,
0.
hey.
The crazy thing is to watch the shift.
A lot of people
this has been a shift, I
Yep.
would say, in the last 3 years.
100%. No, you're absolutely right. And that's where I think the defenses are smart to do that. But they're also creating a lot of vulnerability if you're willing to adjust your formations. The biggest mistake that empty teams make is generic 3-by-2 formations. And just like they're always going to roll it out 3-by-2 basic splits. Our hashes are a little different because we play NCAA field spacing. So I know your hashes may look a little different. I don't know what it looks like in Ohio, but you're going to split the end man on the line of scrimmage and the hash and numbers or something generic like that. And so the goal initially with empty is to create spacing for the secondary. The answer to that is, hey, let's 0 you. Let's bring 6, double mug. Let's do the Brent Venables Miami pressure where he squeezes all the gaps. And then if you block them, they come, or if you block them, they drop. If they're free runner, they run. It kills empty teams. Now, the best advice I heard from this was really Frank Reich was talking about this when he got the Panthers job. He said in the NFL, everyone's running the same pass concepts, which is more or less true for high school, college. All of us are doing similar stuff. He said the biggest difference is sophistication in pass protection. He said the difference between a really elite NFL offense and a middle tier, obviously you have elite traits at quarterback, but the other thing is the sophistication in pass protection. And I got to spend some time with some NFL guys recently, and one of the things they talked about is you have to mix up your protections. It's not enough to just be sound on the board. You have to create different looks for the offense in the same way that the defense wants to create different looks for us. And so in terms of the best empty answers, I think it's a variety of formations in empty. So a big one is 3-by-2 bunch with condensed splits. And so basically what you're doing is you're keeping players closer to the box. And so what a lot of NFL teams will do is, yes, they're empty, but they'll essentially get into 7-man protection with double chip. So they'll double chip the ends and then be able to release on more of an intermediate or deeper pass concept. And that's where high school coaches tend to get in trouble in empty, is that they'll just default to quick game and then they'll get pressured with 6 and default to throwing hot. And it basically just like neuters your empty game. And so that's what I would say is the biggest leap forward in the NFL is you're seeing a lot of teams condense formations and chip protect. The other thing they'll do is they'll actually bring either a receiver or a running back into the A gap if they're getting double mugged and turn it into 6-man protection out of quote unquote empty. And that's another great answer.
I've seen that years ago, and that's always been in our hip pocket adjustment if we ever needed it. Rather than, especially here in Ohio, in a high school level, he can't cut. So to try to cut down that collision of running up and try to get that guy.
It's going to condense the pocket. It's going to condense the pocket. Even if he does a really good job, it's just going to create a mess. And one of the things I'll say is that guy's not in the A gap just to pass protect. Like the goal is to get out on a route. And so designing your concept where your running back can release through an A or a B gap. And if anyone shows, he's in protection, but if nothing shows, he's out in a route. So you'll see a lot of NFL teams basically cross the field. So you like underneath, they'll get like basically like a late mesh concept off the chip. And so the running back's involved in that late mesh and you're getting intermediate stuff in behind, a lot of basics or digs and daggers in behind. So I think it really comes down to when you're creating your empty game plan, I think you need concepts that attack the intermediate level. And you need to protect accordingly and design protections for the running back to ultimately get out. And 5 out's the goal. And that goes back to the West Coast offense, goes back to Air Coryell. The goal in a pass game is to get 5 out. And I think a lot of high schools are so nervous about 5 out base 5-man pass protection that they don't ever get the back out. And I think you're just leaving a lot on the table if you're not getting your back out.
Do you think they're nervous because it's hard to have – it's hard anywhere, but especially in high school, it's hard to have – 5 offensive linemen, really 4, but like 5 offensive linemen who are each, you'd be comfortable being like, all right, I'm cool with leaving my left tackle and my right guard on an island by themselves.
100%. 100%. That is terrifying. And that's where I've become such a big fan of through this study, chip protection, because you're not letting those defensive ends widen out and tee off. You're chipping. And really, because the chip protection is happening in the C gaps, and then you're getting release from that, they're not necessarily in the concept early. They're in the concept late. So it's almost like you have two checkdowns in a way, but you're running an intermediate concept. And I think a lot of defenses struggle with intermediate and deep pass concepts out of empty, because especially if they want a zero pressure, they are going to probably be in man or some sort of fire zone, and they're just going to get eaten up in anything deeper intermediate. But I think you need to build that in. If you live in quick game and QB run, you're going to get killed with pressure.
I think intermediate's definitely where we struggle. Like, our linebackers getting lost in some things, and
Totally.
if we're not getting home at D line, or if our safety's not getting home on the blitz, like if we don't get home on that blitz, and there's a quarterback, it's gonna, like, a lot of times in the city where I'm at, there's a quarterback, he's running. Most of the time, he's going to be able to get up through, get out of the pocket. And so I feel like when I blitz, that's like my base thing. I always, when I have we run a lot of spies as well.
For sure.
When we're out there, we'll run it from our Leo, which is our hybrid DN. Middle, we'll have our other DN. We'll have our linebacker. It just depends, different week to week stuff. But that's one thing that, like, we see a lot of. But like, what up front, what I try to do too is I try to do a lot of stunts. Do you guys see a lot of stunts and movements from just the D line, not just necessarily blitz wise, but like the D lines?
A ton. Yeah. And I think that's where this is getting in the weeds a little bit with pass protection, but I think it's really important in empty and up a 5-man protection to take vertical sets in pass protection to be able to pass some of those stunts off. I think I've actually stopped using the word slide. Like, we don't call it slide protection anymore. We basically have a sort side and we have a sift side. So it's not man and zone. It's not half slide. And we don't use those words anymore because honestly, everybody was just flying out of there and we were getting stunned to death and getting killed. And so we really decided to really create everything off a vertical set kind of building block, because we'd be able to pass things off, because the stunts are really what give you a ton of trouble in empty as well, because it's really designed to mess up QB draw or any type of QB run game. And that's why I think it's important, if you're going to run a lot of empty, to have a pretty decent menu of run game options. And so I tried to put a bunch of stuff in there that's almost like single wing type stuff. And I think if you have a quarterback that can run and you can condense formations, I think formational variety is like the biggest hack to empty. Like, again, like I said, if you're just going to sit there in 3x2 and standard splits, you're going to get eaten up. Like, defenses are good enough to eat you up in that.
But if you're just running different stuff, it's a struggle on defenses for us.
100%.
And what I'll do sometimes, if I see a team running a lot of that quarterback power, we'll see a lot of jet out of it, but Q power also, like 100%. We see that a ton in the city, and that it's brutal. I'm not gonna lie, there's a lot of times it's brutal if they come out in a bunch of different formations as well.
Yeah,
we play one team at Whitehall. They come out in stupid amount of formations, and it always blows our kids' minds. No matter what, it's the same plays,
same exact plays.
It's brutal though.
Yeah, and I think if you have a quarterback that can run, you can present it in a lot of different ways. I'm just such a big fan of condensed splits and empty, because you can really quickly get from a 5-out pass concept to QB pin and pull into the boundary, and all of a sudden, dang, okay, zero blitz that. You're gonna get hammered. So I think that's the biggest thing.
Change the game nowadays too.
Coach, I just got a quick question. You talked a lot about protection. Do you use a separate protection when you're in empty versus, say, your 10 personnel, other type of stuff?
So everything we do from a protection standpoint is built off of a 5-man protection, and then we just layer in additional. So you'll rarely see us like full slide stuff, or obviously we have like boots and nakeds and different things like that, and that's just in a different family. But yeah, everything's built off of a 5-man protection so that we feel really comfortable in empty. And I was talking to a college coach kind of recently, and he was talking about how even their 6-man protection, like that as a coaching staff, they'll refer to it as 5.5-man protection because the goal is always to get the back out.
Would
And
you
so
say your
that
protection matches that vertical set, Tony Franklin vertical drop stuff?
to a degree, yeah, I think it's a mixture of it's really I would say maybe like more pro style in the way it's taught in that it's basically like three offensive linemen to the sort side or the slide side are responsible for three, and then the two linemen are responsible for technically three because they sift it out. So if a backer comes, they would squeeze and we'd be hot off the defensive end. If a backer came and a defensive end dropped out, like we'd squeeze that down. It's things like that. We run a lot of mesh too. So we get 5 out. You know, sometimes you'll see teams like peel the defensive end with the rail route out of the backfield. And we want to be able to handle that protection as well and not just be blind. So I think the biggest thing we stress is give yourself time to communicate. And that's why we push the vertical set, because if you're getting engaged too quickly, that's when the stunts really, I think, start to mess with you a lot.
I've seen some of that squeeze from Ed Warner. I've seen a little
Totally.
about me on the internet. He's talked a lot about it. Who do you think right now, if somebody wanted to dive more into empty, and you've spent a lot of times looking at I know from your guides, it's a lot of college and NFL teams.
For sure.
What are some of the teams utilizing empty the best right now? If we wanted to find out more and dive in deeper, who's doing it the best?
Yeah, for sure. No, that's a great question. I think everybody does it a little differently and creatively, and there's things I could point to that certain teams I think do better than others. In terms of specific teams that I think you should look at, I would definitely say 2022 Oregon. Kenny Dillingham was the OC. He's at Arizona State now. They did some great stuff with Bo Nix, and I think having Bo Nix, who's mobile, they honestly lived in empty. If you go back and watch that Oregon State game, I dang near 50% of the snaps felt like they were in empty, and they just did a lot of different stuff: intermediate, quick game, QB run. It's just all over the board. In the NFL, you're not going to see nearly the QB run game stuff, but you're going to see a lot more complexity in protection and pass concept. So like 2021 Rams, obviously they won the Super Bowl, but I think what people underestimate is how much McVay shifted the offense to fit the skill set of Matthew Stafford. He can live in empty. Like he's a guy that can live in empty. Joe Burrow can live in empty. You see the Bengals in empty all the time. But again, they're doing it maybe a little differently than a college team would or a high school team would because they have receivers with elite traits that can win one-on-one. So it's hard to match that. And they're also not going to run their quarterbacks. I think you see more nuances in protection because they don't run the quarterback. I think the answer that a lot of college teams will have is, okay, shoot, we'll just run the quarterback. Another team that I think does a phenomenal job in empty is Wake Forest. They're super underrated in everything they do. But when they had John Wolford, this is several years ago, 2016, 2017, they were just doing some unbelievable stuff with pairing QB run game with screens, empty, quads, just they were all over the place. And so that'll give you a good picture of what multiple formations, simple plays looks like. I think Wake Forest is a great example of kind of that principle for sure.
And flipping sides. I know as we get into your Play Callers Club and you dive into a whole bunch of other stuff, what do you think are some of the hottest offenses teams should look at outside of just empty? Who do you love to study? For me, I'll be honest, this offseason, I watched a ton of 49ers Shanahan stuff, seeing how they used both Debo and Christian McCaffrey, because I was envisioning some of our personnel. Who is something that you've really dived into?
Yeah, no, that's another great question. It's tough for me to narrow it down because I'm just into this. I could go down any rabbit hole at any time. I think for me personally, now that I've started to get to know some guys, I think I really am drawn to like the overall kind of philosophical approach. This is a unique one, but he's going to be at Wisconsin next year. Phil Longo, I think, does a really amazing job. And I think everybody was a little bit confused as to how that would work at a place like Wisconsin that's really not known for his kind of four-vert style. But he's a coach's coach, man. I think he's going to do a really good job. I think they do some of the best stuff out there with route adjustments and switch releases, and everything's built off of four verts, which I think is it's really aesthetically pleasing to watch a team like run an offense based off of four verts. There's just so many so many cool things that they can do. So I think he does a great job. I think it really all hinges on the quarterback. If they're a good quarterback, their lights out. So yeah, I'm all over the board, man. There's certain coaches I really like the way they run the football. Certain coaches I really am drawn to the way they throw the football. Some coaches I just love their philosophy and the way they coach. So it's cool to be this deep in it because you just get to watch so much good football. And I've been fortunate enough to connect with a lot of people too. So just get a lot of insight, which has been awesome.
I'm excited. You said Wisconsin, you touched about it. I'm excited to see if you think about what Fickle did at Cincinnati. It was a spread
No doubt.
offense. And
No
like
doubt.
Phil
Yeah.
Long was a hot offensive guy. I'm excited for that. I have just one last question. I'll leave it to the guys to finish up. If, let's say, you're talking to a younger offensive coordinator or anybody on offense side of the ball, give a couple things you think people should be doing this season or hard to stop concepts, whether it's concepts, nuggets. What's a couple things you could share to everybody about, hey, if I were starting out or if I wanted to have a lot of success, I'd be doing this?
For sure. Yeah, I think one of the best things you can do as an offensive coordinator, especially a young coordinator who's figuring out the play calling structure and how you see things, how you like things. A lot of coaches will script, but I'm actually maybe a little bit more of a believer in sequencing. So basically the idea would be that you may have a script that you use early in the game, but later in the game, you have a sequence of plays that you've repped that one just goes right into the next. And you may have your opening script with 10 or 15, but then later in the game, maybe in the third quarter, you have a sequence of a run play, a screen, and then a pass play all packaged together. And the kids just know that as soon as this play ends, we're running this play. As soon as that play ends, we're running this play. And it's a good way to just kickstart your offense if you're struggling. Some package together some plays that your kids are really confident in and that they can run one play after the other and get some tempo. I think sometimes injecting some tempo, if it's not something you do all the time, is a good way. I think one of the most underrated things in all of football is not necessarily tempo between snaps, but tempo from the huddle to the line of scrimmage. I think coaches leave a lot on the table when they don't utilize like muddle huddle type stuff. There's schools down here in Texas, they run the Texas slot T. So it's basically like a version of wing T, but they'll huddle and they will sprint to the line as fast as they can and snap the ball immediately. So you can't really identify formations and where guys are, and everything hits so fast that they're just tearing people up, and they're definitely not the most physically talented teams on the field. And so
there's one team that does that here in Columbus.
Oh yeah,
high school.
Who?
Is it fun to play them? Do you like playing them?
No, listen, I have a funny story about that. We played them first game 2 years ago, and we're not bad. We match up really well in the Columbus City games.
Sure.
We match up really well in those games. We got dominated. Absolutely beat up the whole game. We could not adjust. I would never schedule it. Now, talk to me week 7, week 8, when our kids are seeing. We've already went through that. We're already played into shape, but it was unreal. It was crazy.
Man, my first year down here in Texas, we were in a little bit of a rebuild mode. We had lost some kids to college, to transfers out, and we scheduled a slot T team. And I had no idea what it was. Like I was brand new here. I'd never played anything like that. So we go to some East Texas town and we're playing a slot T team. And I swear to you, we were on the field offensively for 10 minutes the whole game. They just had the ball the whole game. And it was one of the most like anxiety producing things I've ever experienced as an offensive coordinator. Cause I'm just like, it just totally psychs you out because you're like, I don't know how to like
demoralizing for a defense.
Oh yeah. But it even messes with the OC because you're just like, when are we going to be on the field? And you feel so much pressure to score, and you just it messed me up.
I'll say it all the time. Anytime we see the wing tees, the options, the teams that can keep the ball away from you, I try to tell our kids and our staff, like, hey, like we have to be prepared. We have to be efficient. We got to score. We might get the ball 5-6 times sometimes.
Right. Oh yeah.
And I feel if those first couple series don't lead the points, the anxiety builds.
No matter what either, too, like literally I've been in games where they don't score, but they're still taking 8 minutes, 7 minutes.
No doubt.
Yep.
You know what I mean? You block the field, they miss the field goal. You're still like anxious to go down scoring. You're playing against the scoreboard.
No doubt. But yeah, Muddle Huddle. Use it. It's a cheat code.
Donnie Mack, you haven't asked a question. I feel like you're about to fall asleep, big kid.
No, I'm the young pup here, Coach. I don't know if they alluded to it. Coach Sayers and I are obviously the young pups over here, but this is my second year of coaching.
Let's
I'm
go.
25.
Love it.
Last year is my first year coaching, so I appreciate being able to soak up knowledge from Stout and Sayers every night, but from people like you when they come on the show. So for me, it's a lot. It's like drinking from a fire hose. But what's that?
I said that was sweet of him to say that. Stout soak up knowledge from him. It was sweet of him.
That's not what he said a couple hours ago.
It's not what he was saying when we were getting drinks the other night. When we were all together.
I love it.
I'm more sentimental on Wednesday nights. How about
No
that?
doubt.
Yeah.
Sayers, wrap this thing up, man.
Hey, Coach, we appreciate you a ton. We can't even repay you for this. Like nobody in Ohio can. 614 area. We have a lot of listeners right now. A bunch of people following us, and it's been great. And every time we get somebody from a different area, Texas, it was awesome to see Coach Caduti last week. Now have you on that people. Everybody knows you guys on Twitter, obviously, in the coaching world. So we appreciate you a ton, and also our sponsor, Fundraising University. We appreciate those guys and Brent Maxwell. But make sure you guys go on to Coach Casey's website and you order his book. Make sure you guys go on there and get something from there. I know that I'm going to send all my stuff over to our offense coordinator too, and I know I'm going to dig into a little bit of empty stuff because we run a lot of shotgun stuff. So I will be contacting him, hitting him up. But thank you again, Coach. We appreciate you, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, man. This was fun.
And I can say, just as I wrap it up, man, I've been a buyer. I've been on the Play Callers Club. I've got the ultimate guide to screens and things, detail. And like I said, I promise you, if you get it, you are going to get nuggets that are going to help you next season. And the crazy thing about this sport is sometimes you learn a nugget and you don't use a nugget for 2-3 years.
No doubt.
I think about our playoff game, and we fired off a nugget that led to a touchdown last season. And it was a play that we had scouted and sat on the year before and didn't run until then when the roads crossed each other. Hey, if you go get this ultimate guide to empty, you're going to find something. Coach, I've been hitting you up. You're probably like, who's this dude that keeps tweeting at me and messaging me?
I love it.
But in my opinion, the squeaky wheel gets the grease, baby. And I'm glad you came on.
Man. Keep it coming. I'm terrible at responding to stuff. I have a hard time taking it all in, but I appreciate it.
You're a busy man, man. This has been one of those like starstruck ones for me. But thanks for joining 614 Headsets. If you want to hear more, make sure you subscribe on Apple or Spotify or Google, whatever it is you do. Remember, our YouTube channel is at 614 Headsets. Give us some comments. Let us know. Hit us up on Twitter, because we take a lot of your, believe it or not, we take a lot of your feedback that you guys text us and do and try to roll it back into shaping this young show. So once again, Coach, hey, we wish you luck this next season. Congrats, and thank you for everything you've done to grow this game. And what a great night, man. I'm starstruck.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
All right. Everybody have a good night. We'll see you.
Thank you guys for listening.
Appreciate it, guys.